Now I would like us to discuss why some people develop SIBO in the first place. Our body has several clever protective mechanisms to keep those bacteria in check. And what are they? First one is gastric hydrochloric acid. So this is acid which is secreted in our stomach, and it's one of the primary roles is to kill those bacteria, those eggs of the parasites, to kill those fungus which come into our stomach. And what affects it? So stress can lead to insufficient amount of hydrochloric acid to be secreted. Use of PPIs or antacids, omeprazoles, gaviscons, things like that, which suppress our hydrochloric acid. And what is usually happening, like if person develops indigestion or heartburn, sometimes they go to the doctor and they get prescribed those PPIs, or if they go to the pharmacy they can be recommended trial of gaviscon, and they end up taking them without checking if their level of the gastric acid was high in the first place, because sometimes symptoms of heartburn or indigestion can result not only from high level of hydrochloric acid, it can result from the other things which are not related to high hydrochloric acid, but yet person is getting prescribed or recommended those medication which reduces the amount of hydrochloric acid in stomach, and then they end up taking them for months, and therefore they have these mechanisms, natural mechanisms protecting them from SIBO removed. What else? We have reduced amount of hydrochloric acid with the age, and also if we eat in a hurry, if we check our emails, so if we're watching our television, we haven't got sufficient amount of digestive juices produced, which also helpful to protect our body from this bacteria overgrowth. And because our body is secreting digestive juices even before we start to eat, when we look at food, when we smell our food, when we think about food. So therefore, in order to help us, we need to practice mindful eating. And the second mechanism is enzyme, which I partially just discussed. And enzymes produced by the pancreatic gland and by the brush border cells, so they called brush border enzymes. They are produced by the gut cells itself, and as I said, if we don't eat mindfully, or if we haven't got sufficient amount of fluids in our body, if we are dehydrated, then we won't have sufficient amount of enzymes produced, and another mechanism will fail. Another protective mechanism is motility, and we all familiar with bowel motions, which is type of motility. We might be familiar with peristaltic movements. These are movements within our gut which help to move food from the top to the bottom. And another protective mechanism is called migrating motor complex. This mechanism is happening in the small intestine when it's empty, in between food digestion processes. And what it does, it has a role of the housekeeping. It removes undigested food particles, and it removes bacteria from the small intestine. So, and thus this protects us from the bacterial overgrowth in the small intestine. And what factors can affect this migrating motor complex? First one is hypothyroid, for example, because it slows down all the motility within the gut. Another one is use of opiates, things like codeine, for example, or other opioid painkillers you might be prescribed from the doctor for different pains. They slow down motility, including slowing down this migrating motor complex, and this housekeeping doesn't happen in the small intestine. Another thing which can damage migrating motor complex is traveler's diarrhea or acute gastroenteritis, and some people have it like several times during their lifespan. And what it does, it damages those nerve cells responsible for migrating motor complex excuse me, and therefore slowing down all the motility and slowing down this migrating motor complex. So and the last one is ileocecal valve. Ileocecal valve is a valve which is situated between a small intestine and a large intestine, and it's like a sphincter. It's normally closed. It only allows the passage of properly digested food from the small intestine into large intestine, where our feces or stool is formed here. And because there is a higher amount of bacteria in a large intestine, this valve prevents spillages of this fluid containing high amount of bacteria from the large intestine to the small intestine. And it's normally, as I said, closed. There are certain things which can impact the work of these ileocecal valves, such as chronic constipation, because if there is a large amount of stool or feces in the large intestine, it can then push onto the ileocecal valves, and it will be remained open, and the bacteria will spill back. Also, different surgeries, and it can be any abdominal surgeries which can result which can impact the function of the ileocecal valve. So we just discussed this protective mechanism, which are hydrochloric acid, which are enzymes, motility, and ileocecal valve. So these all mechanisms which protect us from small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And failure of one of those or several of these mechanisms is predisposing us for the development of SIBO. And for us to address SIBO well, we need to identify those protective mechanisms which are failed and address to put them right. Only then we can successfully address your SIBO.